Hey, hey. Happy Father's Day, everybody. Could you all hear me out there? Hello, hello, hello. Does anybody really know what time it is? Anybody really cares? Anybody out there? Hello. Hello, Sorrente. Hello, Christine. How you doing? Happy Father's Day, everybody. Woohoo! Father's Day. Isn't that cool? Loud and clear. Awesome. Awesome. We started early today. I was over listening to the live stream for Rick Moore at Sophisticated Lady, and I got tired of listening to all the buffering and skip, skip, doing that intentionally. All the audio messed up. It was just irritating as hell. Hey, Cam, welcome. Glad to see you there. Hello. Yeah, so I was over listening to Rick's live stream, and it was just a full of technical issues. I guess his son Brendan, who is normally his tech guru, wasn't there to help old Rick, and he was having buffering issues, and his stream kept cutting out, and his audio kept getting choppy. Couldn't understand what he was saying. He just doesn't quite have it dialed in yet. So, not saying that I do, but I think we're having a little bit more success lately. So, I was looking away when you made that sound and thought my stream had just died. Sorry about that. Hey, Grizz, old buddy, how you doing? Hey, Grizz, on your feed, it came up that you were doing a live stream, but I went to your live stream and you weren't there, so I don't know what the deal is with that. Somebody in the chat said you were doing a live stream on some other channel, and I couldn't find that live stream, so sorry if I missed it. Hey, Kelly, how you doing, buddy? Hey, last nice guy, how are you? At least yours is good. I assume last night's guy, you were over at Rick's chat as well earlier today. Yeah, his live stream was kind of choppy and hard to follow. You know, it just frustrates me when you can't understand the dialogue. I don't mind the occasional buffering and stuff as long as the conversation is ongoing and you can understand what they're talking about. When you lose that, then you really lost everything. Hey, Austin, buddy, how's things over in UK? Over there across the pond? I tried doing a live stream with Bob and get it on my channel too, but gave up on it. Yeah, well, working out technology, it's always going to be difficult for you. Kelly, things are going well. Frustrating as hell this week, but going well. As you guys all know, last week I announced we finally worked out the details of the sale of the property. I'm going to talk about this later again in the live stream, but I'm starting early today. But I just to throw it out there for you, this woman is driving me nuts. She's taking forever to do stuff. She did talk to the bank. I spoke to the bank. Now apparently we're waiting 2 weeks before the appraiser can even get started. And then the appraiser is saying it could take 6 to 8 weeks to get the appraisal done. But apparently the appraiser that we have to use is on vacation, won't be back till the 4th of July. I'm about ready to choke somebody. This frustration is just like way up here right now. Just things are taking way too long. So, hey, my property's still on the market. Somebody else comes along with cash and is able to move quicker, I'm gone. But kind of like we've got a bird in the hand, sort of, maybe. Frustrating. Very hot in England, yeah. Huh. Not up here. 59 degrees right now up here in Alaska. Cold, cloudy, overcast, a little breezy outside, and 59 degrees. It's been sort of a miserable day. Actually, I'm kind of feeling miserable today. It was a cold, wet, rainy morning, so I thought I'd make a little sausage gravy and biscuits, and I think my milk was a little sour because I'm not feeling good from it. So, did I see winds catch a fish and get spooked? I assume you're referring to the debacle where the winds caught that fish, tried to reel it in, tried to gaff it, tried to net it, had all kinds of problems. Or are you talking about when they got a fish on the line and just sat there and watched all the line peel off their reel? Which episode are you talking about, nice guy? Because I've seen both of those this past week. I saw them get a fish on the line, and rather than stop their boat, or turn their boat to follow the fish to play it on the line. They just sat there and watched all the line go right off their reel. You know, amateurs. So, yeah, Kelly, I'm sorry about my frustration too. Not a damn thing I can do about it, man. Not a damn thing I can do about it. I'm trying to push things along and move things along, and I'm trying to be civil at the same time, but I think up here in Alaska, everything moves on island time. You know, everything just happens when it happens. Tomorrow, the next day, next week, it's going to happen, but, you know, they're taking their sweet ass time. So, the woman buying the property doesn't have any intention on doing anything with the property for a while, not till probably next spring. So, she's not in a huge hurry. The bank seems to be taking their sweet ass time. Like I said, the appraiser is going to be 2 weeks before he's even going to get started. So, I'm trying to be patient. So, Chris says it's 80s there in Oregon. When the shade hits the yard, I'm firing up the chainsaw. Oh man, yeah, that's the one. Okay, last nice guy. Yeah, yeah. I don't get why they did that. You know, you see, you got a big fish, you got your drag cranked up tight as it could be, and it's still just peeling the line off your reel. You know, you're on a catamaran and they were under power. So, you know, drop your sails, turn the boat out of the wind, turn your motors down, or better yet, just turn the boat and start following the fish. You know, start reeling in while you have two people on the boat. One person should have turned the boat and followed the fish, while the other person had the opportunity to start reeling some in, covering some ground. Instead, they drove out like, you know, it almost looked like they hooked something on the bottom and just drove off and waited all the line peel off. They had no success whatsoever at reeling in anything. So, and considering they were in the Bahamas, that's a pretty good probability, actually. So now there's, you know, what, 300, 400, 500 yards of monofilament just floating around out there waiting to trap something else as it's floating around it. Ridiculous. Just dumb. Very frustrating from my part to watch that happen. Been cold here, yeah. Yeah, it's weather is weird. 80s here as well, hotter in the south. Huh. Thought you were going to say when the shade hits the yard, you were going to start a fire. Hey, Carl, happy Father's Day to you. Kelly Binkley, where the dude? Hey, Sailing Deserata. Hey, I was going to comment to you earlier today on one of the other live streams earlier today, but I just didn't get around to it. So they need a bigger boat. Austin. No, actually, I don't think they needed a bigger boat. I think whenever that happens to you, okay, if you're out on a boat and all of a sudden your line's peeling off and there's nothing you can do about it, stop your boat. At least stop your boat and stop the hemorrhaging, stop the bleed, you know. Then start cranking on the reel. If you're cranking on the reel and you don't feel any movement in the rod, then obviously you have bottom. So you might as well back up to wherever you were caught and keep reeling in till you get above it and try pulling the other direction. Maybe you can get free. If not, at least that way you're cutting your line pretty close to wherever you're hooked onto. Or better yet, since you're in the Bahamas in shallow water, just dive down and retrieve your lure. It's not that hard. So, that isn't hardly try to reel. No, they didn't hardly try anything to reel. They just watched the line go off. They actually just stood there dumbfounded, all excited that they thought they caught a really big fish and watched all the line peel off their reel. But you know, hey, live and learn. This is how you learn stuff. I've had this happen to me before, so this is how you learn stuff. So hopefully they'll learn from it. I got a bunch of trees lying in the yard we took down, and I got to get them cut up. No, Grizz, more power to you, buddy. But I'm done. Hey, man, at the last auction, they sold my chainsaw. That's where I'm at. I have retired from wood sawing. I am quite skilled with a chainsaw, but those days are officially over. I'm hanging up my chainsaw and my chaps and my chainsaw sharpener. I'm done with all of that and moving on. I hope never to have to cut firewood again, because man, I've cut hundreds of tons. So, hey, comments now. I'm good with that. Oh, I don't remember what I was going to comment about. You were having a conversation with someone in the live stream or something about the live stream, and I was going to chive in, throw in my 2 cents. Not that anybody wants it, but I don't know. Bigger boat could pull the bottom with them. Yeah, not likely. Y'all better get her done or Garfield gets it. Okay. They're in the Bahamas and Staniel Key with friends at the moment. Don't have good communications with them at the time. Okay, I was wondering why I haven't seen a live stream from Bob and on Sailing Doodles. Bob and Megan haven't done a live stream. I think it's been 2 weeks now they've not done a live stream, so they're gonna lose some of their audience. But I think folks like to have things real regular. But I was worried about them, to be honest with you, especially with that being a boat new to them. A lot of problems can arise from them. So they're still in Staniel Key in the Bahamas. I wonder how long will it be before they move over to Florida. Be interesting to know. Now on to suntan lotion and shrimp traps. Yep, that's right. Hey, no to Florida 919. Yep, you got it. On to suntan lotion, shrimp traps, crab traps, fishing rods, scuba diving, spear fishing. Just going for a swim. So, got a spot on my glasses I've been trying to get rid of all day today. It seems like all I keep doing is making it worse. I think I splattered something on them while I was cooking or something. I don't know. Oh, now that's really bad. See what I can do here. Anyhow, what I wanted to do today a little bit. Hey, Weigold, how you doing? What I wanted to do a little bit, I've been watching a lot of the other chats and stuff that are going on and seeing some of the questions that's getting asked of people. I'm actually kind of surprised at some of the questions. Everything from how do you cook an octopus to what color you painted the boat bottom, and it just seems the scope of the questions, the broad spectrum of questions asked on some of these live streams just boggles my mind. I mean, right down to what kind of toilet paper they buy for their boat. It just seems kind of odd, all these different questions that get asked. Don't like that we don't have good communications. Yeah, Cam, I agree, but that's part of sailing, because being offshore, you don't have good communications all the time. No problem with the caps, Grizz, no problem. So anyhow, one of the things that I see as a recurring question from everybody else goes to costs. And I know some of you guys have asked me about costs, the cost basis for going sailing, and how much money, if I wanted to do this, how much money do I have to budget and what have you. So I'm going to limit the conversation today to not being about buying the boat, because that's an individual choice thing, although it does seem to greatly impact your cost later on, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But I kind of like to talk a little bit about the ongoing expenses of being a cruiser on a sailboat sailing around the world. Kelly says, I think I can speak for all the Sailing Doodles followers in that the Sunday live feeds have spoiled us with the expectations of them being there every Sunday. Yes, there's a lot to be said about that, Kelly. And it sort of annoys some people when you have a live stream that's not in your normally scheduled time. You're disrupting the norm. So the screen name is actually New Jersey to Florida 919, but now in New Mexico, working my way back to Florida. New NJ to, I see, New Jersey to Florida. Okay, my bad. Okay. Anyhow, so I want to touch base with the expenses and budgeting, and everybody asks these people about sailing and cruising. What's it cost? What's it cost you to sail? What are your expenses? What's your budget? Hey, Rhonda, glad to see you here, darling. Having computer issues. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So I thought I would share with you my budget, and I'm not going to put it up on the screen this time because that hasn't worked any single time that I've tried doing that. So I'm just going to do it from here, and you guys can follow along if you wish to. I got the toilet paper question. Some brands is all better than others. It makes a real case for John Wayne toilet paper. Actually, sailing Desirata, there's the issue. You see, when you're sailing on a sailboat with even modern day toilets on a sailboat, you don't flush the toilet paper. The toilet paper doesn't go down the toilet because it'll jam up the works in there. The works aren't designed for it. If it doesn't go through you, it should not go through the toilet. So you take toilet paper, you wipe yourself, and you put that in a separate basket that's usually provided on board the boat. So in that case, you really want good toilet paper that's going to hold up. Yes, your John Wayne's types that hold up and are pretty solid because you don't want to flush that stuff because it'll. Yeah, the systems on a sailboat. Let me go over this real briefly. From the toilet, it gets flushed through a pump mechanism. So it's got to go through the pump mechanism to begin with, pumping through. Then it goes into usually a macerator, which grinds stuff up. And then it either goes into a holding tank or it gets pumped directly over the side. So if you flush toilet paper, it gums up the pump mechanism and it gums up the macerator and it'll settle into the holding tank, creating blockages and problems in the holding tank. And then, of course, it forms blockages as you're pumping it out because that toilet paper is basically wood particles that have been glued together, and they have a tendency to want to keep gluing themselves back together again in different shapes. So you don't want to put toilet paper down the toilet on a sailboat. It's just not done. So, isn't it free? Wind is free. Oh, last nice guy. No, it's not free. As long as you don't buy sandpaper, toilet paper, it's all good. John Wayne toilet paper don't dissolve quickly. It takes a long time for pine cones to dissolve. Yes, I'm aware. Okay. Kind of the same with RVs. Yes, Weigel, to some degree it's the same with RVs, but I know most people will buy a fast dissolving toilet paper for use on an RV and pump it in a holding tank. But either way, let me go on and talk about budget, which is kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit. I mentioned before that your choice of sailboat can dictate your costs going on down, and that is absolutely the correct thing. The more money you spend in buying the boat and getting it organized and set up initially, selling Desirado, you don't have to apologize for anything, buddy. No problem. The more money you spend getting your systems on board initially can reduce your costs later on. By the same token, investing in fishing gear, shrimp traps, crab traps, rods and reels, spear guns, that kind of equipment can also greatly reduce your costs later on. So let me talk about some of those costs. Let me give you my budget items, I guess, and we'll go from there. And a lot of this has to determined by your lifestyle and what you're doing. Obviously, if you're not doing a YouTube channel, a lot of the expenses that we're talking about here won't apply because you won't need to have those, like having a cell phone or having internet. You won't, generally speaking, need those if you're just out sailing, unless you're trying to keep communications with people on the dirt or you're doing a YouTube channel where you need to be able to upload videos and stuff. So, first item that I have on my cruising budget is my cell phone. I currently have an account with AT&T. I get unlimited internet for both my laptop or for my i7 and my iPad. Those two work in conjunction, and my i7 can become a wireless router then for my laptop to access, so I can download stuff and upload stuff over the telephone. So I spend a lot on my telephone. I'm spending about $130 a month for just my account alone with that. And then I also have internet here at the cabin. I don't know exactly what internet's going to cost on the boat, more or less, buying units, measures, and how we're going to do that. You really can't subscribe to a service because you're moving around, but you can subscribe to services in specific areas, just not when you move from point A to point B. I can subscribe to a service in Florida. It's not going to do me any good in the Bahamas. I can subscribe to a service in the Bahamas. That's not going to do me any good in the BVI. Every time you move, you're basically setting up a new provider for your internet service, and that can get pretty spendy. So I have that. Setting up my YouTube channel, I also have a website expense just for me. Generally speaking, the fixed expenses that everyone's going to have is you're going to have groceries. Where I live up here in Alaska, groceries are very expensive. I am paying island prices for my groceries up here. My cost to have groceries up here is about the same as it is in the Bahamas or in the Virgin Islands or what have you, because most of our vegetables up here in Alaska are shipped up here just like they're shipped down to the islands. So my budget's about $600 a month for groceries. Now, I can substantially reduce that figure while I'm out sailing because I'll be able to fish and spearfish and trap and what have you, and be able to catch a lot of my own proteins. And the proteins are the largest portion of my budget. So you have to have your fuel expense. And again, this is a lifestyle choice. You want to run a generator and air conditioner all night, you're going to spend a lot on fuel. You want to leave the windows open and just have some screens to keep mosquitoes away from you and can survive like that, you can substantially reduce your fuel. Even though you're in a sailboat, and yes, the wind is free and you can move from point A to point B pretty inexpensively, you still need to run the generator to generate electricity for whatever devices you may have, or you have to use the engine to move from point A to point B, especially if you're trying to outrun weather. Now, there's where spending some money up front can save you a lot down the road. You put in a battery bank and some solar panels, enough to generate and handle the electricity for your refrigeration and for your computer Wi-Fi stereo needs, then you won't have to run the generator so much because you'll be getting the solar gain. So it's, a pay me now or pay me later proposition. If you can afford to put that stuff in at the get-go, then do that, and you'll save yourself some money down the road. Might have to hotspot from your phone from area to area around the world. Yeah, Kelly, that's true, but even your phone provider will change as you move from hotspot to hotspot. I can tell you AT&T, if I'm roaming on AT&T, it ain't cheap. It is ridiculously expensive. Just when I drive, if I have my phone on in my car with my mapping program and I'm driving across Canada, I did that one time not thinking about it, and I was in Canada for, I think, 7-8 days, and I had a $300 phone bill because of my roaming fees for roaming up through Canada with my phone on. So never do that again. So you got to watch that kind of stuff. So your fuel is an issue. I have an item here for just miscellaneous items, clothes, all those little things that you just don't think about that you may have forgotten. I have a line item for those items, something to think about. And keep in mind your fuel, you also have to deal with your solvents and oils, fuel filters, that kind of stuff out of your fuel category. Going back to that. Sorry, I'm jumping around here a lot. For me, I have Miss Lily, so I have a line item for dog food. You have to stop and do laundry from places to places. So make sure you leave room in your budget for a laundry. And every time I stop someplace that has laundry capabilities, I'm taking a hot shower. Because you just get a much more luxurious, generous shower than what you would do on the boat. Have a line item for staying in marinas. Now you can anchor out and you can save a lot of money by dropping the hook someplace and being on an anchor someplace. You can anchor some places, doesn't cost you anything. Some places you have to pay a little bit to anchor. But that's a whole lot cheaper than either being on a mooring ball or in a marina. At some point, you're going to have to pull your boat out of the water. So you're going to have some marina expenses throughout the year. So try to budget for those as you're going along. I have set up for myself that my marina fees, I'm budgeting around $300 to $350 a month. Figuring I'm going to have to do a haul out at some point, and so that money I'm putting aside every month will all be spent during that haul out, and then that'll also include things like maybe my bottom painting and some other stuff as well. So, can a good wind generator run an AC on a boat? Keith, that depends. Generally speaking, no. The wind generator by itself usually isn't sufficient, but a good battery bank and a good set of solar panels can run an air conditioner on a boat. Air conditioning and refrigeration are your two biggest draws on a sailboat. So something that you have to consider. Need to replace mast with a cell tower. Yeah, probably not going to happen. You need to set aside a big, and this is a big major item, boat repair. If you're buying a $35,000 sailboat, then you need to figure $3,500 a year for boat maintenance and repairs. 10% of whatever your boat costs is approximately what you're going to spend on boat maintenance and repairs. So have a budget item set up for that. Subscriptions for services. You subscribe to wind service, wind generators, weather routing. There's some, navionics for your electronics and navigation. You subscribe to those services. Be sure to set some money aside to cover those costs. Entry and exit fees as you go in and out of various countries. You run into all kinds of bureaucratic costs. Certain countries aren't that expensive to get in and out of. Some of them are absolutely ridiculous to get in and out of. So you got to be concerned about that. Let me see. Keith, you're welcome. Sailing to Sonata. Serious question. If you're traveling through a country's territorial waters, but you're not stopping there other than to sleep and leave, do you have to check in and out? Generally speaking, if you're not anchoring in their territorial waters, you're just passing through, you don't have to check in and out. If you go in and you anchor overnight, they usually want you to check in and out. If you step foot on the ground, if you step foot on their ground, then you have to check in and out. I believe those are the basic rules, but that will change island to island, country to country. Some countries, you even, make a pass with your boat through an anchorage. They're going to want you to check in and check out. Other countries, you could be there for a week and they don't even want you to check in and check out. They don't care. They don't want to be bothered. A lot of countries are different in the way they regard that and the way they handle that kind of thing. So that's almost on a per country basis that you have to worry about that. But as a general rule, if you're not stepping foot on their land, you don't have to check in and check out. If you're spending a night in an anchorage you're dropping a hook, which is basically stepping foot on their land. If you're doing that, then you should check in and check out. If you're only in there overnight, then check with Harbor Patrol or the harbor master and ask him what he thinks. Say, look, man, I'm going from here to here. I was really tired. I just need to sleep for a couple hours. I'm not coming ashore. Can I just drop the hook and go? And the harbor master will be able to give you some direction in that regard. So, Rome Yard Gnome, welcome. I like that name. I just paid $2.25 for some damn eardrops for swimmer's ear infection. This bottle of eardrops is about the same size as my thumbnail. Grandpa, how is medical cost in Alaska? Same as food and stuff. Yeah, medical expenses are ridiculous everywhere. I find Rogue Yard Gnome medical expenses usually are cheaper outside the U.S. than they are in. I've got some friends of mine that were down in La Paz, Mexico. They needed to get some dental work done. The dental work, their dentist back home was talking like $2,000, $2,500 to do it. They had a dentist down there do it. I think they spent like $300. They said the level of care, the quality of facilities, all that was equal, if not better than their dentist back up home, just was cheaper. I've heard the same kind of stories with medical treatment as well. You can get a lot of procedures done in some of these third world countries, just as good a quality medicine as we have here in America, but a lot cheaper. Mostly, I think, because of their insurance and legal system. They're not paying ridiculous rates for insurance and lawyers and all that crap. So I hope that answers your questions. Hey, Chips O'Haty, welcome, buddy. I'm a full-time RVer, so a lot of the costs will overlap between the two lifestyles, but I would love to get a sailboat. Well, sure, Keith. The nice thing about a sailboat over an RV, well, there's a lot of nice things. For one, sailboat doesn't have tires wearing out, making contact with the road. Yes, we still have an engine, but we could raise the sail and go from point A to point B cheaper than you can drive from point A to point B. But maintenance-wise, it's about the same. The difference is with an RV, you're limited to only places roads go. Maybe you can get a little off-road with some RVs, but most RVs can't do too much off-road stuff. With a sailboat, you can go anywhere pretty much that's wet, that's deep enough for you to run your sailboat. Now, that means you can run up some rivers, and some rivers you can't. But it certainly opens up a much broader area of ground that you can cover. You can't take an RV from here to, say, Europe. I can take my sailboat over to the Med, no problem. So it allows me a lot more options. So everything in Alaska is shipped by boat or truck. Yes, we only grow 3% of our food up here in Alaska is grown locally. 3%. 97% of the food eaten up here in Alaska is brought up. So very much like the Caribbean countries. Last thing you want to do is tick off a harbor master. Yes, you don't want to. No, you don't want to piss off a harbor master. Yeah, you be civil to them. Think Miami to the USVI, nothing on the ground, just stopping to sleep. Check in and out or no. Again, I would just radio the harbor master in the area that you're going into. Or, contact the local. Okay, if you're going from Miami to the USVI, and so you're thinking what, maybe you might stop in the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico and spend a night. Call up their people on the phone. You can dial them on your phone and ask them what they recommend. They may tell you just go on and don't worry about it. They may tell you got to check in and check out. In that case, if you know that's the route you're going to take and you may stop in there, I would drop a dime and call them. Call the local embassy and ask them if it's okay. They may be absolutely fine with that. But and some of those countries, you're missing a lot just by blowing on by. I know a lot of the cruisers talk really highly of the British Virgin Islands and what a great sailing destination they are. I've sailed the British Virgin Islands. Yeah, they are pretty nice, but man, they're really overcrowded. I mean, really overcrowded and expensive. Almost too much services available. There's a beach bar on every beach that, some place that's serving a bunch of alcohol and loud music and what have you. In a great many ways, it's kind of ruined it. So, in the meantime, though, you're going to be sailing right by the Dominican Republic. You're going to be sailing right by Puerto Rico, Turks and Caicos. There's some great places to stop and see along the way. You'd be well off to do that, especially, if you get to the islands there for the Spanish Virgin Islands, which are those islands just a little bit to the east of Puerto Rico. That's a real pretty area and well worth stopping by and doing some sailing there. So I would check into Puerto Rico just so I could spend a little time cruising around that. So last nice guy said, did you hear about the Navy ship hit? Yes. Who was on watch? Apparently nobody was on watch on either boat for that to have happened. Yeah, the Navy ship got hit by a cargo ship. Yep, nobody was at home on either ship. Nobody was paying attention. Absolutely 100% everyone's fault. That just doesn't happen. And for people to have lost their lives, wow. I'm not sure who the captain was of that U.S. ship, but I'm sure he's gone. I'm sure he's gone. If he's not gone, he should be gone. So, well, that's okay, Rhonda. We understand. You've got family and stuff visiting with you. Not a problem. Okay, so entry and exit fees are something that you have to consider. If you're going to be doing a lot of entering and exiting, if you're traveling like on a circumnavigation where you're on the move, you better figure $300-400 a month. If you're only moving from point A to point B, like you're going to spend, 6 months in the Bahamas or something, you don't have to figure that much. So it all depends on your itinerary and where you plan on going to, how much you should be setting aside for your entry and exit fees. Then my next line item is travel and excursions. Are you going to visit the ground? Are you going to see any of the local sites? Are you going to hire a taxi? You're going to take a bus in? You're going to, go inland and visit stuff, rent an RV in that country, drive around? Are you going to spend any time seeing what's going on in that community? So you have to set aside some money for your travel and excursions. Are you going to fly back to the United States and visit, or wherever you're from and visit family? That's a consideration. So you need to have a budget item for that. And then for me, I also have a budget item for replacement camera gear. And that you should have anyway for electronics, for boat repairs, because salt water is really corrosive and very hard on those items. So that's kind of like, those are the main budget items that I have on my budget. You notice I didn't have anything on there for dining out, and I didn't have anything on there for booze, for alcohol. If you're going to need a bunch of booze on board, if you're going to need a bunch of, money for dining out, then you'll have to calculate that and figure that. But, my basic budget, my basic full budget, everything included, I'm spending $30,000 a year on a sailboat. I can, by eliminating a few key items. If I eliminate onshore excursions, if I eliminate or cut down on how many different countries I visit often, so I'm reducing my entry and exit budget items. If I do not go into marinas unless it's absolute emergency and anchor out all the time and reduce that down. And I plan on taking my rod and catching some fish or going spear fishing or putting crab traps or shrimp traps down and reduce my food budget. I can get that down to around $1,100 a month, $1,000 a month, and be able to really be enjoying myself, so many people. As a realtor, I have so many people want to buy that house on the water overlooking, the beautiful anchorages and stuff. Everybody, when I had my real estate office in Florida, people wanted to buy a house that was waterfront where they could look out and see all the pretty sailboats out in the water. Well, I can have a $1,000 a month budget and live and be that view, literally be that view, live on that sailboat in that anchorage, and be only spending, $1,100-$1,200 a month if I'm on anchor. Now, if I'm on a mooring ball and I got to pay to park at the dinghy dock, then that's maybe a couple $100 more a month to have that privilege. So there's a broad spectrum in what you're doing, and so you just got to kind of pick out what's right for you. So let me catch you up on the chat here in a minute. Hi, Karina. How you doing, darling? There's a whole lot we are not going to hear about. It should have been impossible to happen. So was flying planes into the towers. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. Should have been impossible to happen, so was flying. What was impossible to happen? The captain is in the hospital with a head injury. Oh, okay. I didn't catch that first part. Why is the captain in the hospital with a head injury? What happened? Hear about the 37-foot catamaran that wrecked down in the Bahamas with 2 aboard. Man was okay, but can't find the wife. No, Kelly, I did not hear about that. But when I do hear about stories such as this, I usually think there's some foul play at foot. So if the wife couldn't be found, I think you should be talking to the husband. Really, they haven't had a whole lot of real bad weather in the Bahamas just yet, so I'd be surprised that somebody was hurt, but it can happen. So I don't know the details of that, so I really shouldn't make any comment. But it's been my experience that when those sorts of things happen, there's usually something else going on. So last guy, I've been thankful that I'm still alive. Oh, Rhonda's alive. She's a good lady. As much as I would like to drink, there are some places booze don't belong. I would think that would be on a boat. I won't let it in the hunting camp. Yeah, Grizz, yes and no. Keep in mind, when you live on a sailboat, that's your home. So you're going to have booze with you all the time. Now, whether you open it up and partake of it, that depends on what you're doing. If I'm out sailing, I'm not going to drink a beer while I am, while the sails are up. Well, but once I get someplace and drop the anchor and make sure my anchor's set properly and I'm in a good, safe location and everything's cool, yeah, then it'd be time to crack open a beer and sit back and have a drink. Have a sundowner, as they call it. But yes, while you're underway, you don't want any alcohol out being drunk by the crew. So alcohol and guns don't mix. Nope, alcohol and guns definitely don't mix. Navy ship hit by a freighter. Yes, I knew of the Navy ship hit by the freighter. And that's just inexcusable on all accounts. It's inexcusable from the freighter. It's inexcusable from the Navy ship. Both of them are at fault in my estimation. So 9/11 was the fly into the tower, I think. Yes, 9/11 is when the plane flew into one of the towers. Absolutely. Drinking on a boat is okay, but it's just like driving a car. You have to be responsible with it. Yes, as always, yes. It is legal to cruise if you don't drink. Is it legal to cruise if you don't drink? Yes, it is legal to cruise if you don't drink. You surprisingly, contrary to what you see on most of these cruising YouTube channels, there's a lot of people out there on sailboats that aren't heavy drinkers, that aren't luscious. There's a lot of them. So it's not the national pastime of people on sailboats. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that do a lot of drinking out on sailboats, but those that live aboard usually aren't partying as hardy as a lot of those that are new to it, or people that are, you know, uh, chartering or what have you for a short-term basis. So pilots are almost always drunk. Well, that may be true. Tracy, how you doing? For a Navy ship to be hit by a tanker should be impossible to do. No one believed the towers could be hit by planes. Well, that's true. I don't think that was a terrorist attack. I think that was just bad seamanship. Heck with the booze, just bring some of that Alaskan reefer with you. Probably easier and cheaper for you to get. Yes, there's some on the shelf right up here above me right now that I've had. One of my clients gave me some pot as a tip. It's still sitting there in the container. I don't know what to do with it. I I, I used to smoke when I was in high school, guys, in college a little bit, but I tried some of this stuff when they gave it to me. Way too strong for me. I stay away from it. So I will probably toss what I have here when I leave Alaska. I'm not taking it across the border with me, that's for sure. If it's big and gray, you get out of the way. Yeah, that's right, because it sure as hell won't. That's right. Drugs and boats should never cross paths. Absolutely, Keith. Yep. Yep. The Vikings taught pirates everything pirates know, but not everything they know. Yes, Rhonda. Rhonda's a Viking. The part they will not say in the media is that most likely some of the sailors were sealed in to keep the ship from sinking. It could be possible. I don't think the impact was that big a deal. But yeah, a lot of the ships automatically lock up compartments, bulkheads to contain them. So that might have played as part of it. I don't know. I'm not going to armchair quarterback that, but it's a possibility. So believe me, we are not going to get unfiltered facts on how everything went wrong. Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, you're not. If Karina, I guarantee you that if you weren't on that boat and knew firsthand what was going on, the news media is not going to put out any information that's going to help you. Um, you you just got to go with what you can go with, and try to do the best you can with what you know, and accept it for what it is. I don't think it was an act of terrorism. I think it was bad seamanship. I think, you've got people in charge of both boats that were not in control, obviously, not paying attention. And so we have an accident and we lost lives. So that happens. If it did happen, they had no choice but to close watertight bulkheads. Yeah, possibly, PC guy, maybe. Is it beer 30 time? I have a couple while I barbecue. Hey, Tracy, go ahead, man. Enjoy a beer. I may have one yet myself. I don't know. Not really in the mood for it. I'm not feeling it tonight. Not feeling it tonight. I made sausage gravy and biscuits, and I think I used somewhat sour milk. So I'm not feeling it tonight. But feel free to go ahead and have a beer with your barbecue, man. Because, man, if I was having barbecue ribs and chicken, I'd be having a beer. So I'd have been on 2 sunk boats, not ship size, but enough for me to stay off the big water. Actually, Rogue Yard Gnome, to me, the thing is I'm very comfortable being on a boat as long as I'm the one running the boat. I'm not real comfortable with other people being a captain. And I mean that seriously. I'll tell you an interesting story. While I was doing my television show, Travelers in Paradise, I was contacted by a guy down in the British Virgin Islands that owned a Lagoon 440 catamaran. He does a crew charter where people pay him and he takes them on his boat and he takes them out. He plays the captain and he runs the boat, and then they take care of everything else, and they They have to pay him for use of the boat, and they have to feed him while out there, which became a bit of an issue because we bought some stuff for my daughter, and he ate it on her, which kind of pissed her off. But he was a bit of a pig anyway. But anyhow, this guy is the captain of the boat, and while we were driving around on the boat, he was not a good captain. He was not paying attention to where he was going. And, I remember one time specifically saying, hey, man, I think you should swing out wider. This island point comes out a long way as these rocks protrude a long way out into the water. You should go around this wider. And he turned to me, oh, I'm the captain of the boat, yah ha ha. He goes, oh, I've gone through here all the time, never had a problem. And no sooner did he get those words out of his mouth than, bam, the starboard hull stopped going forward. And we were underway pretty good. It took a big old thud and stopped the boat dead in the water. So he was scared to death, thinking we were sinking at that point. He went down below to check the boards. I grabbed my snorkeling gear and said, hey, I'll jump in and check the hulls. I jumped in and checked the holes. Well, sure enough, he had hit a rock so hard that the boat had popped up and was now sitting on the rock, and I was able to guide him to back the boat back off of it. It wasn't so much damage that he was taking on water, but he took a big hit. And this is a licensed six-pack captain person. So again, but I watch these sailing videos, just like all you guys. I watch these sailing videos, and I see these guys driving the boats, and I'm like, holy shit, man, go wider around that, or slow down. You're in an area that's too narrow, or, I'm a hell of a backseat driver on a boat, man. I watch these guys do stuff that's, I'm sorry, you just, slow down. Go, stay in the deep water, stay in the middle of the channel. I laugh at so many of these people out there on their boats that are somewhat clueless. Hey, there's some of them out there that are great. They do a great job. But there's some others out there that, for whatever reason, they just don't think. You see somebody, chartering a monohull, and they're motoring through an area with a lot of big rocks, and you're like, dude, you're awful close to the rocks. Oh, I've got plenty of distance over there. I said, yeah, I'm not worried about the one over there. I'm worried about the one under there. You're in awful shallow water. This boat, has a keel that sticks down 6 feet below the surface. And, they just don't think about that. They can't see it, so they don't think about it so bad. So, anyhow, I see that kind of stuff going on all the time. I'm not happy unless I'm under control of the boat. If I'm driving the boat, we're safe, all's well and good, no problem. I don't trust other people driving the boat. But then again, I'm the same way about driving a car, too. So, let's see. Rogue Yard Gnome says, open water is beautiful to see, no pun. But yeppo, I just don't have it. Hats off to those who do. Right, and that's fine. Know your limitations. Nothing wrong with that. I hate people that can't handle their booze. A couple of lightweights dropped me, carrying me out to my car twice because they couldn't handle it. Chris. That's classic Grizz humor there, folks. That's why we love them. Yeah, that's why I can't ride in an 18-wheeler with someone else driving. Hey, PC guy, I understand what you're talking about. Yep, very struck. Hey, best ever I had. How you doing? From start to finish, how long does it take, and how much does it cost to become a certified captain? Well, it depends on what school you go to. You do have an hour requirement. I think they require, I want to say 300 hours offshore. They have an hour requirement of being an experience requirement. You have to be so many hours offshore. And then you have to go and take a course, which can be done online or they can be done very quickly. I think there's some captain's courses that you can knock out in like 2 weeks. On land, you just go there every day for 2 weeks, and they take you through all the course material so you can finish the classroom portion of it. But then there's also a requirement for how many hours you have to be on board ships getting experience and offshore. So that will impact that as well. There's a number of good sailing schools that you can look at that'll teach you how to become a six-pack captain. Do a quick search online and you'll see what those are. I don't remember what the exact requirement is for the hours, though. I'm thinking it was like 300 hours of offshore experience, but it may be more than that. I don't remember. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. So I'm gonna ask you to then go ahead and look that up. That was my previous question. Moving too fast for me. I'm too slow and old. My previous question: for 30 years, I couldn't sleep behind someone I couldn't trust. Yeah, Rhonda used to be an over-the-road driver, guys. Cheshire Canary used to drive long-distance truck. Here's a question for you. What is the big difference in sailing a catamaran versus a monohull? People that own catamarans swear by them, and the ones that own monohulls swear by them. Is it preference? Keith, you've opened up a huge debate, the cat versus monohull debate. And I've been looking at this and participating with this and experiencing this for some time. So let me say this. There are some people that like monohulls just because of their style, the way they sail, nostalgia. There's a lot of people that prefer catamarans. They're faster, they're more comfortable, they're much more expensive. A lot of the animosity I believe that people have against catamarans is they can't afford one, so they're gonna talk crap about one. I think there's a certain amount of that going on. If I had all the money in the world and could sail whatever I wanted to sail, I would buy a Yaplunka catamaran. Now, Yaplunka, as in you plunka down a whole lot of money, but seriously, the name of the company is Yaplunka, I kid you not. Best catamaran I ever saw was a Yaplunka 70, a 70-foot catamaran. Phenomenal boat. Phenomenal boat. Very expensive, though. But it's a boat that sails efficiently, it sails easily, it sails level. You look at sailing with vagabond people right now. They were dyed-in-the-wool monohull sailors, and their articles now are all about how they're able to make 20 knots downwind, and she's able to do a stir fry in the galley at the same time while they're doing 20 knots downwind in 4-foot seas. The catamarans they sail flat and level. You don't have as much of the back and forth bashing you do with a monohull. So the differences are, people that sail monohulls claim they can sail upwind better. They can sail into the wind better than a catamaran can. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I've sailed a number of catamarans. I found them to be more than adequate for sailing up into the wind. So for me, I had no problem with it. The catamarans are much faster. There's an interesting story actually of the old America's Cup boats. There was some guys up in Annapolis, Maryland. They were out on some of the old America's Cup monohulls, and these guys are just cranking it and busting their ass trying to go as fast as they could. And here they got 5 guys hanging over the rail trying to put the weight out, and they got the ship weighted way over, and they're trying to go as fast as they can, and everyone's busting their butt and sweating their ass off. And meanwhile, here comes a guy on a chartered catamaran. He's got his beer sitting there on the flat table. He's got bikini girls sitting out on the hood. They're out on the trampolines in the front of his boat, sitting out there drinking beers. And he's just kicked back, relaxed in the cockpit, just easy as could be, waving as he sailed past the America's Cup racing boats. The catamarans are just smoother and faster and much more pleasant boats to be on. You've got a lot of square footage, you got a lot of surface area, better access into the water, more deck to walk around on. They're safer because you've got more deck to walk around on, more area to work to. More likely all lines are led aft into the cockpits. You've got 2 motors instead of 1, so you've got redundancy, which is a safety factor. There's a lot of advantages of a catamaran over a monohull. There are no advantages that I am aware of a monohull over a catamaran except for one. They're cheaper. They're cheaper to buy, they're cheaper to operate, and they're cheaper to have in and out of marinas because you get charged by the foot. Catamarans get charged more because they require a much wider berth. The monohull will be cheaper. So So that, I guess, is your big difference. The only sailing characteristic difference is that a monohull supposedly can point up into the wind, can sail up into a wind easier than a catamaran. But with the monohull, you're usually heeled over pretty good as you're making way, whereas that catamaran is still going to stay up pretty solid and flat. Now, the big story everyone says is, well, catamarans can pitch pole. Yes, the early design catamarans, even some of the more modern catamarans today, if they're not sailed correctly, if you're going down a big wave, you can bury your bows into the wave, and then the boat will pitch over the top of that and flip itself over. That can happen. You watch the America's Cup. They just saw that happen during this last America's Cup. One of the catamarans buried its bows and flipped itself forward. That can happen. Modern day cruising catamarans, not very likely that that's going to happen. And when you're in conditions where the waves are so big, and now keep in mind, these have to be waves big enough that you're sailing down them. So that means the waves are bigger than your hull is long. And if you're out there on a 40-foot catamaran, you're talking about 40, 50, 60-foot waves, which frankly, you got no business being out there in the first place. You should have done your weather routing and not been out in that weather. But if you are out in that weather, you do something that's called putting out a drogue. You put out a system of canvas cups, basically, attached to a long tether. It's called a drogue, D-R-O-G-U-E. You can look them up. And you attach this to the back of your boat and tow it behind you. It's basically a sea anchor. And what it does is it catches the water and it slows your boat down. Yes, you're still making headway, but this is giving you a whole lot more pull going backwards. So as you get up on the crest of that wave, instead of sailing down with such force that you're burying your bow into the water to flip over, it slows your boat down so that doesn't happen. And that's how you make a monohull safe. But see, here's the other side of the coin. Let's say you both experience a ground strike or a whale strike. These happen all the time nowadays. Not all the time, but often enough. If you're in a monohull and you hit a ground strike and make a hole in the bottom of your boat below the water line, your boat's going to fill full of water, your boat's going to sink. Period. If you're in a monohull, if you're in a catamaran and you break a hole through the catamaran below the water level, you're going to fill full of water, but you're still going to stay on the surface floating because of the difference in design. The monohull is going to have 8, 10, 12 tons worth of ballast in the bottom of that boat, which it uses as a fulcrum weight to keep it sailing upright. The catamaran doesn't use all this weight at the bottom to keep it in the water. It uses its width to balance it out. So a monohull may be carrying, a 40-foot monohull might be carrying 10 or 12 tons of lead in its keel. So when it hull full of water, you've got that much weight pulling it under. The catamaran doesn't have that. So even though the catamaran might pull the water in, it's still going to stay floating. Even if your catamaran pitch poles and flipped upside down, the saying is better to be upside down and floating than right side up on the bottom. And so as a safety issue, I honestly believe that catamarans are safer than monohulls. As technology moves on nowadays, ship design progresses, we're seeing a lot of growth and development in ship designs for catamarans, whereas the ship design improvements in monohulls is pretty much stagnated right now. We're not seeing a lot of new technology being developed in the monohull industry unless it's a byproduct of what's happening in the catamaran. Catamarans are the new direction that people are going in right now for buying new boats. There's still a lot of new monohulls being sold, but for the most part, not all the time, some people are purists and they want to have their monohulls. For the most part, that's people that can't afford a catamaran, so they're buying the best monohull they can buy. So I hope that answers your question, Keith. Grizz will definitely tickle. I jumped too far. Uh-oh. I guess I got way behind on the chat, guys. Sorry about that. I didn't realize it wasn't going forward. Let me see if I can go back to where I was at. Okay, so the Waynes did theirs like 2 weeks, maybe less, on their own boat. Shitload of fire trucks going up by my place. Okay. Definitely tackle a few dingleberries. The Winds did theirs in like 2 weeks, maybe less, on their own boat. Winds did what, Tracy? Hi, Tracy. How you doing? What did they do in like 2 weeks? I don't know what your question was. Loaded question brings up ultimate question. Cats versus monohulls. Not going there. I went there. Hope it's not fire grizz. Don't forget trimarans. Yeah, Tracy, there is a trimaran. No one's really making trimarans nowadays. Not fire season yet. Still making trimarans. So the reason is that I'm asking that I'm looking into buying a sailboat, so just trying to gain all the knowledge I can, info on that can. Yeah, Keith, and don't get me wrong. There are some good monohulls out there that are good, safe boats, as safe as they're going to be for a monohull. But the better bet would be to buy a catamaran. The modern day catamarans, the new ones, the way they're designed now. There's, of course, cover motorboats too. Yeah, last nice guy. If you get a 6-pack license, it's for power boats or sailboats. It's generally it's not necessarily about how to sail. They don't teach you how to sail. They teach you the rules of the road. They teach you about all the things you're not allowed to do, what to look for, buoys, markings, navigation, deploying rafts, that kind of stuff. Hey, Karina, have fun doing your chores. Also extra work. Again, Tracy, I don't know what you're referring to. Also extra work. Used to be quiet here until the city folks. Yeah, well, California have a blame list for everything, Grizz. Anybody know how long swimmer's ear lasts? Swimmer's ear usually lasts a week or so. If you take good care of it, it'll be gone in about a week. Done a lot of swimming. How far are you going to swim? I'm going to swim a long ways. Just because you've got swimmer's ear does not mean that you have to wear earplugs for life after that. Swimmer's ear is just a little infection that can be dealt with. It's best ever to balance your weight so the cat is light in the bow. One of the big things they did with the development with catamarans was learning to put the engines all the way to the rear to keep the weight as far to the back as possible. That's why all your better catamarans will use a sail drive. The sail drive enables them to put that engine as far to the rear as possible. So there's something to be said about keeping the weight to the back. You don't want to overweight your bows too much on a catamaran, which is a shame because you got these great big huge storage areas up front, but good place to store a large lightweight stuff. All caps. What time is it there? What time is it there? Grizz, it's 4:01 right now here in Alaska. Question and answer comparison of the two different types really helped me a lot. Okay, good, Keith. I'm glad it helped you a lot. I'm glad that helped you. I guess I've caught up with stuff. To sail a 6-pack, you need a sail endorsement. Yes. Hey, Malay. Yes, if you're going to get a 6-pack license and you want to use a sailboat, you do need to get a sailing endorsement, because sailboats do require a bit more than the standard 6-pack. What is a 6-pack license? A 6-pack license is issued by the U.S. Coast Guard, enables you to be a captain on board a ship with 6 paying passengers on. Now, that doesn't mean you're only allowed 6 people on the boat. You could have yourself as the captain and a first mate and a cook, being 3 crew members and 6 paying customers. So the 6-pack license is specifically limited to 6 paying customers. That's what a 6-pack license is. So if let's say you decided to buy yourself a monohull and you want to do some chartering, you want to, rent out the rooms on your boat and take people sailing a little bit, you still need to have a 6-pack license in order to be able to do that. And the 6-pack license is the very lowest stage in getting professional licensing for a boat. What is a 6-pack? Beer. Bottle. Nope, not a beer, not a bottle. 6-pack license has to do with how many passengers you can have. Hey, Tracy. A 6-pack wrapped in a sail. Oh, you guys are all bad. You guys are all bad. Rhonda says I'm into suitcases, 24s all the way. I used to resemble that remark. Not anymore. You know, and talking about the boat budget, I didn't I don't have a line item for booze or alcohol on my budget. I go sailing and cruising. I'm simply just not putting it on board. If it's not on board, then I won't engage in it, and I won't have to worry about it. So, Maui Lay says I have 100-ton, just letting someone know, Gramps. Yeah, 100-ton license is the second step. You go from the 12-pack. I think 100 tons a second. Is there something in between, Maui Lay? I don't think so. I think 100-ton is the next step. You go from a 6-pack license to 100-ton, which means you're allowed to captain a boat up to 100-ton gross weight. Dagger boards versus fixed keel. Okay, dagger boards versus fixed keel is referring to all boats. I've seen dagger boards and fixed keels on monohulls as well as sailboats, as well as catamarans. A dagger board is a board that can be lowered into the water and pulled back up. The purposes of a keel or a dagger board is to allow you to track through the water. I think on a catamaran, a fixed keel is superior because the length of that keel will help give you some stability in the water. Dagger boards, which tend to be, you know, kind of like a straight, narrow board sticking down, tends to allow the boat to swing around a lot and not track so straight. I don't like dagger boards on a catamaran. I much prefer a shallow fixed keel. Simpler, easier, but, you know, if you're racing, like you see the guys right now, damn USA has been losing to New Zealand. 4 races in a row we've lost. But those guys are up on dagger boards. Their dagger boards are actually on sails and foils, they call them, where they put a dagger board down. The dagger board comes down and then has a horizontal part to it. And the boat actually gets up on those dagger boards. It gets the complete boat up out of the water to go very fast. So if you're on a race boat, then dagger boards certainly have their place. But, you know, as a big old fat cruising boat, I much prefer just having a fixed keel. Tracy McKern, need to include beer budget. Probably, Tracy, it's going to be your choice how much beer you need to take with you and what you're going to do. If you want to have a beer and a booze budget, then add that in. I don't have one in my budget, but I'm trying to figure out. I guess I should have prefaced this by saying, guys, I'm not going to get nearly as much money out of the property here as I had hoped for. I'm not going to be able to buy nearly as nice of a sailboat as I had hoped for. And so my sailing budget isn't going to be nearly as nice as I had hoped for. So I'm cutting costs every which way possible so that I can still go. Rather go now and go small than to continue being here for another year or whatever, saving money so I can afford to do, you know, I'm not going to spend another year up here in Alaska just so I can have beer on board the sailboat with me while I'm out cruising. Doesn't make sense to me. I'll figure out a way to get some beer along the way. So Maui Lay says 25, 50 ton. Okay, so I guess there's a 25 ton, a 50 ton, then a 100 ton. So I guess you can get different licenses. I've never looked into them because I just have no interest in getting commercial licenses. You can get them all for near coastal. Yes, you can get them all for near coastal waters, or you can get them for offshore if you want to do that too, I guess. But U.S. Vikings dig our 18-inch draft so we can sail row on rivers. Yep, but okay. Shays hit the tree in the yard. Better get busy. Do they have 8 and 10 packs? No, last night's guy. They do not, I don't believe. I believe you go from 6-pack on up to a ton license. I don't believe they have an 8 or a 10. I think it's, well, as the guy was saying, there's a 25 ton. So I think you go from a 6-pack license to a 25 ton would be the next step. But again, you know, it's easy enough to get on the U.S. Coast Guard captain's license. Just do a search, U.S. Coast Guard captain's license, and it'll show it all in there for you. It'll be easy for you to go through and figure out what would work for that. Have a working still on the boat. Yeah, Maui Lay. Delos, SV Delos, they have a still on board their boat and make their own hooch. Actually, I homebrew. I have in storage in Montana all my homebrew making supplies. I could just bring my homebrew supplies with me on board, but I don't know if I'm going to do that for right now. So maybe I'll bring my guitar and I'll sit out on the street corner with a box in front of me and hope people will throw a buck or two in the box so I can buy some beer. Rhonda says she'll buy me a beer, so there you go. Rhonda will buy me a beer. What about keggers? What about keggers, Austin? I've had keggers at home. I don't think I've ever had a kegger on a boat. I'd be concerned about a kegger getting shook up on a boat. Boats move constantly, so it tends to shake up the carbonated stuff inside there. What side is the keel on a cat? The keel is on both sides, but usually on the wet side. Nice guy. The keels are always on the bottom of the boat, and on catamarans, there's a keel on both boats. Both hulls will have a keel on them. SV Delos rocks. Good. Yes. SV Delos are good guys. Absolutely. Love those guys. They're doing a good job. And it's nice because they're kind of humble and they're doing their own thing and they're keeping their boat and working it and fixing it up. I got a lot of respect for the Delos boys. They're doing a good job of it. So glad to see them having fun and doing their thing. Well, I hope you guys liked me talking about budgets. Does anybody else have any questions about budgets? And if so, I can put this away. I will tell you that you can spend as much money as you could possibly spend, but yes, it's very possible for you to go out on a well-situated catamaran or well-situated monohull and be able to sail for as little as $1,000 a month. Just depends on how you do it and what you're comfortable with. Say if you get the flu on the boat, what are you going to do? Dock somewhere or nut up? Well, Sorrenti, I will probably catch the flu on the boat. Let me talk about that a little bit. When you're on a sailboat, kind of like me up here in Alaska, I'm very isolated. I'm not around a lot of people. So my immune system gets to be lazy. It doesn't get worked. It doesn't get challenged. It's not fighting a bunch of diseases like it would be if I lived in the city or was around a bunch of kids and stuff, little petri dishes on legs. When you're on a sailboat, you're in that same situation. You're somewhat isolated, and so your immune system gets weakened. But then you come to some island, and you're exposed to a whole bunch of new diseases that your body's not accustomed to. Now, I'm not talking about the serious life and death type stuff. I'm talking about all the little flu bugs and stuff. So you're going to get them while you're on board a boat. Well, you do the same thing that you would do at home. You put your anchor down and you climb in bed and you relax. You lay out in the cockpit in the sun and get baked by the sun, and you relax and you chill out and you hang out until you feel better. What side is the keel on a cat? Didn't we answer that? The keel is on the bottom, on the wet side. The keel is on the bottom. On both sides of the boat. The starboard hull and the port hull both have keels. The whole bottom of the boat is called the keel. Maybe I'm not understanding that correctly, last nice guy, but I think that's what you were asking for. Oh, wait a minute. I think I went back and read the same question twice. Sorry about that. I'm going to work out a little and date to go look at a Gemini 105 MC. Okay. What do you think about these boats? I think they are the entry-level catamaran. The Geminis are an entry-level catamaran. Basic boat. Good boat. Be a fine coastal cruiser. I don't know if I would take a Gemini around the world, although people have. They're a little tight on space because they are only 34 feet long and they're not as wide as a lot of catamarans. Kind of rudimentary, but they're a really good boat. I would have no problem. Actually, the Gemini would be an awesome boat for in the Bahamas. If I was just going to go to the Bahamas and sail around the Bahamas, a Gemini 105 would be an awesome boat for that because they're really shallow keel. They get up in real shallow water. They'd be a great boat for that. So I would give them a serious look. At Sorrente suffer. Yes, if you get the flu, you're going to just be sick. Carry good medical kit. Yes. Yes, Maui. And guys, just so you know, I used to be an EMT. I do have a jump kit still, right, with oxygen and everything, just like I would have with me as I traveled around. Basic EMT kit. So I do have a good medical kit. The one thing I do have to add to that is prescriptions. I want to get a whole bunch of antibiotics and things like that put aside. And, if you're cruising offshore, you can go to talk to any doctor and explain to them what you're doing, and they'll write you prescriptions for 100 of this and 100 of that and 100 and something else. So you can stock up a decent medical kit to take with you. So, and guys, there's good medicine to be had all over the world. I don't care where you're going to. Even in the third world, they have access to antibiotics and whatever, so you can pretty much get what you need. In fact, usually you can get a lot of that stuff cheaper in a lot of foreign countries than you can in ours. So, Rhonda says her feed froze. Rhonda, mine has not up here, so refresh. Single man, so space will be fine. Yeah, Keith, if it's just you, man, that Gemini would be an awesome boat. It really would be. In fact, I would think about a Gemini for myself, although they tend to be a bit more money that I'm going to be spending. I don't have quite that much money available to me. But they are a nice boat, good, easy access in and out of the water. I prefer a catamaran that has inboard diesels as opposed to an outboard. Some of the Geminis, I think, use outboard engines, but that's just a trade-off. Would 200 grand buy a good cat? Yes. Maui Lay, $200,000 would buy an awesome cat. For $200,000, I would be looking at like a Lagoon 39 to 40 foot, a good used Lagoon 39, good Lagoon 40. You could buy those for 200 grand right now. That would be a fine boat. And guys, just so you know, I'm a big advocate of recycle and reuse. So I would much rather buy a good used boat than buy a new one. Buy a new boat, you're wasting a lot of money. I'll give you an example. I can go out and buy a 2005 Lagoon 440 for around $300,000 right now. When that boat was new, it was $800,000. To buy the 45, which is a new model of that today, you're looking at $1.2 million. So there's a lot to be said. I can buy that used boat, which, like I said before, it's not like a car. You don't have tires making contact with the road. You don't have all these mechanical parts that are wearing out. The only mechanical parts there are on a boat, the major ones, the major parts, are your engine and your sail drive. I can go out and buy that 2005 Lagoon 440, and I can spend another $50,000 and put 2 brand new engines and 2 brand new sail drives in it, and a new generator in it, and have all my major mechanical things replaced brand new on that 2005 hull, and have as good a boat as that brand new one has. It just, I'm not, the old saying, when you buy a car, you drive off the lot, you lose a third of its value the moment you drive it off the lot. Well, that's even worse in the boat industry. So, big advocate for buying a good used boat and fixing it up. It'll be my first sailboat. Well, that's cool. Cool. Trying usually does after an hour. Huh. That may be something with your internet then, Rhonda, because I don't think anybody else has said anything about having problems freezing up. So, it's okay. I heard it twice. Okay. I guess you're referring to having the flu. Yeah, you're going to get sick on board. More important, a bigger issue than having the flu is Montezuma's revenge. You're going to be exposing yourself to a lot of bugs from different countries. You're going to get diarrhea and those sorts of things. That's usually more of a problem than a flu, because now you're getting dehydrated, and dehydrated on the boat can be a serious issue. So just something to think about. But anyhow, guys, we've kind of kicked around another good, what's it been, hour and a half here. So I think we're going to go ahead and pull the plug on this. Unless somebody else has got any other good questions, I think we're going to end the live stream here. Next week, I think we're going to talk more about choices of a good boat. What makes a good boat for cruising and what doesn't make a good boat for cruising. So we'll look at those things later. Dengue fever. Yep. Yeah, there's a bunch of diseases that you're going to get affected to, Maui. You just got to, protect yourself as best you can. But dengue fever is one of them. Yep. Thank you, Kim. I hope you have a great week, too. You guys all have a good time. We'll see you guys all next Sunday. You guys try to be safe and be careful out there. If you have anything specifically that you'd like for me to discuss next Sunday, go ahead and message me, and I'll be happy to take a look at that. In the meantime, guys, if you would, you might check out my Patreon page. I now have 2 patrons, count them 2, looking to build that up. So if you're interested in doing that, please take a look at it. Keith says, yeah, one more question. This Gemini has a Westerbeek. Through diesel engines, are those supposed to be pretty good? Yeah, Westerbeeks are awesome. If that Gemini has Westerbeeks, that's an awesome engine. I would be concerned with how many engine hours it has on it, Keith. But if you have more questions, please feel free to message me. I'll be happy to help out. And as Cheryl is reminding everybody here, yes, happy Father's Day, all. I hope you guys all had a great Father's Day. We'll catch you guys all next week. And Rhonda would like for me to sing Toad Suckers. Toad Suckers. 405 hours, Keith. That's next to nothing. If that's all the hours of the Gemini has on it, that's I would be safe to think that's a pretty good boat. And with that said, yes, Rhonda, I will sing Toad Suckers. So for those of you that haven't heard it yet, Toad Suckers is a song that I learned in college when I was part of a group. Used to hang out with guys at the New Vinton County Frog Wampers Marching, Singing, Strumming, and Plucking Society. And it goes like this. How about them toad suckers? Ain't they sappy? Sucking them toads offshore, make them happy. Hug 'em, mug toad suckers way down south. Sticking them sucky toads in zay mouth. I'd be a toad sucker knowing a duck it. You just find an old toad and you rear back and suck it. Guys, you have yourselves a great week. We'll catch you later. Thanks for taking a look at the Patreon page and listening to me go on here for an hour and a half. We'll catch you next week. You guys have a great week. Bye.